Cool. All right, let's do a little bit of little show. We'll do a bit of an analysis, and if anything intrigues you, just ask. Okay, some of this stuff might be pretty straightforward for what you guys are after, but let's analyze, and hopefully this screen share doesn't die. We can only hope. First things first, we're in 12/8. Next thing, we're in E flat major, indicated by the second flat in the key signature, and also indicated by 3 flats. So if you go to the left of the circle of fifths, you're going to wind up at E flat. So just we're working from C major. So I'm going backwards. I'm going to go down a fifth to F major. Down a fifth again to B flat major. Oh. Down a fifth to E flat major. Every time I go down a fifth, I add a flat. So once I'm 3 times to the left of the circle of fifths in going towards the flats, I'm going to wind up at E flat major. It says light right hand throughout, which is clearly someone's own instructions, but fair enough. You don't want to play this passage too heavy. And then it says easy 50s feel. It's quite common to get, I mean, this whole musical has a lot of Motown throughout the whole thing. So just check the participants for a second. Oh, there he is. Okay. Yeah, so it's quite common to have a 12/8, and 12/8 is 12 quavers per bar, the 8 representing the 8th note. And hey, welcome back, Alex. You can hear me okay?
Hello.
Everything's all good?
Yes,
all right.
I can.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Monday tech qualms. Cool. So we're just looking at Grow For Me from Little Shop. So yeah, just speak up if you have any questions or you'd like me to clarify things. And if it's too easy, let me know, and I can sort of either go a bit deeper or push along a little bit for, whatever people are wanting. This is just a plain as day E flat major chord for the accompaniment. Super simple, indicating to me that, you know what, I'm getting like easy 50s feel. I'm getting no left hand to begin with. I'm getting this nice light 12/8 and a mezzo piano dynamic, which is just beneath mezzo forte. So I'm sort of already getting a little bit of a feel. So we get. And treble clef in the left hand, which is pretty important to notice. So treble clef in the left hand, which indicates that my left hand's going to be a little bit higher on the piano. Otherwise, that's going to be a G, and that's not really the right tonality for the song. So it's got a major tonality, E flat major chord, nice melody in the left hand. Super simple, really nice. You'll see within piano conductor scores, flute, keyboard too. So there's some cues for the piano conductor as they're reading through. And the idea is that you'd play this 12/8 rhythm at the same time. And the easiest way, I would say, to break down this rhythm would be to just see where it lines up with the quavers, because the bar is already subdivided. So a lot of the work has already been done for you. I'm going to look at where each of these rhythms line up. Quaver lines up with another quaver. The dotted crotchet lasts for 3 quavers. One crotchet lasting for 2 quavers, and then the dot adding a half to the current value. Everyone happy with that? How dotted values work? Yep. So this guy is going to last 3 quavers, but I'm going to get rid of that because I don't care about it. Already I'm getting tick 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 dong. Go do dun do go. So far I've got that. And if you can sing a melody like that, I mean, it's nice, rather than just focus on the playing aspect of it. If you actually start singing your melodies, you get, and as singers yourselves, it's kind of just using your strengths really. You're gonna grow a more intimate relationship with the melody. So I'm gonna go 1 2 3 2 2 by die do 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 and do. It's the same rhythm. Do 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 do. Flutes come in. So there we're getting a dominant 7 chord here. okay, which is indicated by the A flat at the top of the flute keys. And to me, we get the dominant 7 basically at the end of a phrase. So when I'm looking at a piece like this, I'm actually seeing a 5-bar phrase. Most commonly in rock pop music, you'd see 4-bar phrases. But in this case, it's a 5-bar phrase because the B flat is elongated by an extra bar. So the B flat is here. You're going to work with me? Very laggy. And there's B flat here, okay? Basically, the accompaniment does the B flat. And then the second last bar, do, 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 is B flat arpeggio. So it's 1, 3, 5. And then at bar 6, we've got the flute and the keyboard 2 coloring the chord tones of the flat 7. Do, da, that's the flat 7. Da, da, da. And as soon as we get an essence of the flat 7, we know it's probably likely that we're going to navigate to a fifth below. All right, so that's kind of going into what I was talking about, navigating for our circle of fifths, going 5 notes down. So C relates to F, F relates to B flat relates to E flat. So B flat has a strong pull to E flat. That being said, more specifically, B flat 7. So if the B flat has a dominant 7 attached to it, and just to dig deeper into that, the dominant 7 is indicated by the minor 7 interval, not the major 7 interval, so minor 7. And it's always pulled from the major scale of the key of the chord. Okay, so B flat 7, whenever you're building a chord, you base the construction of it based on the key of the chord that you're working in. Okay, so B flat, I work with B flat. I don't care about what key we're in right now. So I know that's a B flat 7 chord, and if I want to build a B flat 7 chord, I need to think about B flat major. And I'll find my major 7 first, which is just a semitone away from the root note above up an octave. And then I'm going to flatten it 1 more semitone. And there's my minor 7. Minor 7 interval. So all you guys need to know is the dominant chord is a major chord with the minor 7 interval built on top of that. And that's going to have a very strong pull to the root note of the key that you're working in. So already I've got 1 bar of E flat of like no melody. And I think I've done this before. Safety, move on when table set. So that would have been some silly, stupid set change, which happens way too often. So keep vamping over this piece of music until this very long scene change happens. As you would know, audience tend to get very bored when that happens. So probably not the most creative direction. Anyway, so I clock the table. Now, as an MD, I'm going to be clocking many cues, most often dialogue cues, but not always. So visual cues, sound cues, all that sort of stuff, lighting cues, that sort of stuff. Anyway, so I'm going to have this vamp. Let's say that we're ready. We go. G minor, A flat, major, B flat, more of a 7th now, and that's a bit unexpected for the ear to get an extra bar of B flat. We actually want to hear die, do, die, da, 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 dum, and we want to go back to B flat, but we have an extra bar of B flat just to elongate the point a little bit, also maybe to leave a bit of time for the dialogue and a bit of emotional things to build. Yeah, we don't need to read into it too much. It's pretty simple. The chord progression itself is a 1. So I think about the scale degrees. Okay, so 1, it's a 3 minor, so it's G minor, based on the 3rd scale degree of E flat. 4, it's a major 4, and then 5, and then dominant 5. Okay, the 5 is already inherently a dominant, but if I don't put the minor 7 in there, it doesn't have the pull is not as strong. The pull to the tonic is not as strong. As soon as I add the minor 7 there, that A flat creates a strong tension. So this is a really nice chord progression. Very simple, very indicative of the 50s style. Generally on like like a sort of like an electric piano sound, or the piano nice and high. In that like authentic 50s style rather than musical theatre appropriated 50s style, which is 50s anyway was more appropriated from other cultures and genres anyway, if we're looking at Western, rock and roll and stuff. So it's all like, where did the music come from? Long story short, the rock and roll came from the blues, really. That's sort of 1-4-5. Just so happens that a lot of Western music and rock music takes a lot from the 1-4-5 chord. They're the primary chords of our chord progression, and they're very strong. Simple chord progression, nice melody. Very simple melody. As we can see, the rhythm is repetitive, but the melody changes just enough to get a bit of interest and also not detract too much from the underscoring. And of course, if you were playing Who's a What's Who's Seymour, you'd be pretty conscious of the underscoring and just have a rough idea of what's going on underneath that you're talking.
What do you mean by the underscoring?
What do I mean by the underscoring?
What is underscoring?
What is underscoring as a definition?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
What are you talking?
So underscoring traditionally, in film, for example, is instrumental orchestral backing to a scene. The word, we sort of think about breaking up the word underscore. So it's underneath, which it's not literally underneath, but it's not in the foreground for the listener or for the audience member. And usually, say, for an underscoring a scene that's, absolutely dramatic, or underscoring a scene that's absolutely sad, or a scene between two lovers, or some dialogue. So traditionally, when you're watching a film, there's going to be, we won't get too much into diegetic and non-diegetic music right now, but there's going to be music throughout the entire film generally. And the music that doesn't really particularly take too much attention, that doesn't play into the foreground of your listening ear, I guess, is generally underscoring music. And so in this specific example, there is dialogue happening, Seymour, and all this music is underscore.
Yep, got it.
Makes sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess the essence of good underscore is that it won't pull too much focus, because if it pulls too much focus, at that point it's not underscoring, it's music, it's a score, it's a song. But it needs to tread the balance, okay? It needs to tread the balance of still communicating subtext and emotion for the character and the scene and the context, whilst not distracting the audience, or I like to say the listener, okay? So it's a real strong balance between dialogue and music. And well-written underscoring will just have that balance. So for me, this, I look at this, and as I said to you, the simplicity of the melody. You could get someone doing that dialogue on top of that music. And I say on top of, right, in the reference of underscore, under. So it's all about layers, that essence of oral layers. It's not just rhythm and melody that create the essence of music, though. It's dynamics as well. And the dynamic being mezzo piano is also creating an essence of underscore. Bearing in mind that dynamics can be created through the instrument themselves, but also through orchestration. So not only do we have a mezzo piano dynamic, which is to say soft, medium soft, but we also have a thin orchestration, which it's just piano. And piano is effectively is a soft instrument. It's not going to sound loud on first instance. You have to go out of your way to make something sound loud and obnoxious, for the piano at least. So we've got mezzo piano dynamic. We've got thin accompaniment. So it's not a large, thick sort of accompaniment. It's very thin. So I talk about thickness and thinness in orchestration and density, which is to sort of elicit the essence of layers. How many layers in this accompaniment? In this, very small, okay? There's no doubling of notes. The piano player is just playing one note in the chord, the E flat, the G, and the B flat. There's no sort of extra E flat up the octave. There's no sort of extra B flat down the octave. It's just play the minimum notes to get the chord idea across. And then, so anyway, that's more just a thought about dynamics. Usually we think dynamics are only created by how loud the instrument is, but orchestration and what is being played, the texture or the density of the composition can also play tribute. So we get the mark tree. The mark tree is the... I always get this confused, but mark tree is the verticals. They look like little chimes. Or like little wind chimes, and generally I sort of use them as orchestration to indicate some form of magic or generally magic. There's a bit of a pastiche there, but we're going to have the bass come in, do do do. So the listener gets the underscoring, then the bass slowly trickles in. We get a bit of a bit of a glisten, as I like to say. They just met you, but I've been going through this. What is it? I've been going through this with you for weeks. Magic, okay? I say magic in inverted commas, quotations, in the sense that we do get this sort of magical overlay in Little Shop of Horrors anyway as to what's happening, how does the plant work, why is it talking? It's on the nose, absolutely, but the whole musical is, so it's doing its brand, you know. Grow and Wilk, spurt and flop, are you sickly little plant, just stubborn, what is it you want, what is it you need? So then we get it continuing with a bit more melody in the flute and keyboard too. So notice that the E flat in the right hand chord has been inverted up an octave. Sorry, inverted. So the E flat that was traditionally down the octave has been taken up the octave. Mm-hmm. Everyone happy with major chord inversions? Just let me know if you need me to elaborate on that. Just as a quick recap, the major chord is made up of the 1, 3, 5 of any major scale. And when we invert the chord, all we're doing is taking the lowest note and putting it up an octave. And then if I invert it again, I take the lowest note and put it up an octave again. That's an inversion. That's the simplest sort of way of looking at the inversion. All you're doing, you get the lowest note, take it up the octave. And so this is root position. This is like ground 0, 1, 3, 5, home base, and then first inversion 3, 5, 1, and then second inversion 5, 1, 3. And inversions are really handy when you're wanting to improve your piano practicing or playing, because inversions allow you to navigate to a chord quicker than just moving from root note to root note. So if I want to go from an E flat to an A flat chord, there's my A flat in second inversion. Back to E flat. Rather than going E flat, A flat, E flat. So it's just that's what we call voice leading. It's just a little bit easier to play. It's navigating to less notes, less jumping on the piano. Of course, there's going to be a time where you need to play like that, but it does have the sound of sort of a naive player. So if that's what you're going for, then that's the sort of feel. So. And chance for errors are higher. Anytime you have to lift the hand from the piano, anytime you have to lift and move it, you increase the probability of error. And what we're aiming for with inversions is maintaining the finger attachment to the keys as best as possible. So I can gain that with my E flat to A flat second inversion, because my E flat's already there, and then the E flat to the A flat are very close together. So that's also getting the independence between the 2 and the 4 and the 3 and the 5, which is very hard. Even just an exercise of doing this in your spare time, if you want to live that life. Or like my housemate, like when we're watching films, like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm practicing. Due to tendons and the way that the hand's created, it's very difficult, and it's just not a natural way of moving, but will absolutely increase your dexterity, even to the point of doing it with your hands fingertips touching. So I'm going to go, just for those playing at home, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the fingers, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the thumb's the 1. I'm going to go 1 and 3. So I actually pull 1 and 3 apart, and then I touch them. And then I'm going to go 2 and 4, pull 2 and 4 apart, and then I touch them, and then I go 3 and 5, pull through, 3 and 5, gross. And then I'm going to go back 2 and 4, 1 and 3, 2 and 4, 3 and 5. That's my worst one. And you'll find that every other finger wants to get involved. But with really intense focus, even just doing one finger is good. You can do this on the keyboard, of course. But, you're not always around a keyboard, right? And this is the natural curvature of the hands. Or like if you allow your hands to relax by your side, not like this, but I've got to put it up so you can see on the camera. But you find your hands relaxing by your side, your fingers will naturally find a curvature. You just naturally, give them a shake if you hold tension in your hands for whatever reason. But the idea is that you actually lift your hands just to see how they naturally curve. And then when you're coming to the piano, you actually just rotate it one way and then rotate it downwards. And then you find where your natural placement would be on the piano. Whereas most instruments like sax and clarinet and vertical instruments, they already have a sort of a step ahead in a way, because their fingers are moving the way that it wants to in this sort of lateral motion. When the hands are like this, creepy fingers. Whereas the pianist is sort of fighting gravity a little bit, and we want to be thinking down, but often we go up. Often pianists that are starting out to play move their fingers up and down, whereas it's just an extra exertion that we don't need. So anyway, that's a little bit on piano. I'm happy to sort of weave that more into these things, because theory is kind of boring without sort of being able to apply it. But this exercise, even just doing one finger, sort of like a Mr. Burns sort of thing. Yes. And you'll find, excellent, yes. Imagination. The four is stubborn. 4 will be stubborn. The idea here is I'm encouraging the curvature of the fingers and not making the fingers too straight. Though that's another exercise, but it's just not really how we play. And it's not really how the fingers naturally curve. What's my point? Not really sure. Don't know why I brought that up. But, that's what the drop-in sessions are all about. Miscellaneous, random bits of information. How did you get here? Don't know. So inversions. So we've got our E-flat inversion in first inversion. Isn't that lovely? So we'll just come from our B-flat, 1 bar before. That's right, that's why I brought it up. Navigating from one chord to the next. 1, 3, 5. Now that's 1, 3, 5 chord degree, so scale degree, but that's 1, 3, 5 fingers as well. That's generally how we that's our fingering for a major chord. 1, 3, 5, not always, depends where we're moving. I'm going to go, for this one, I'm going to go 2, 3, 5. For those that are still establishing a bit of flexibility, that'll be a bit difficult initially. 2, 3, 5. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 4, if you can visualize that. So 2, 3, 5. 1, 2, 4. So what's happening is the 3 to the 4, the D to the E flat. And that is tricky. Because the 3 and the 4 are sort of joined by the same tendon, so they have a tendency to want to do whatever they want. So if I was learning a phrase like this, I'd actually hold down the B flat, hold down the G of the next bar with my thumb, and practice navigating 3 on the D and 4 on the E flat. That's an independence exercise. But what makes this exercise more difficult is the fact that the other keys are pressed in, because you'll find that they'll want to lift up. And so the trick there is to always do very slow, mindful practice so you don't generate tension in the fingers and so that the fingers don't lift up. And you're kind of visualizing that your fingers are essentially glued to the keys. You don't want them to lift up. If anything, you want them to go down. All right. Cool, we get the melody doubled. When melody's doubled, usually just means that someone else is singing the same melody or playing the same melody. In this case, the flute and the clarinet too are playing that melody, as well as the keyboard conductor would be playing that melody too. So we can see it's in octaves, die 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 die, whilst the piano player is doing. So go da da da, but not completely doubled. Da 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 da. So the pianist is still doing that little movement, whereas the rest of the players are holding it. Cool. So here we've got a quaver with a staccato dot on top. The staccato dot is always going to be either on top or below. That's going to be staccato. If it's next to it, adjacent to the note, it's going to be a dotted rhythm. Okay, whereas staccato is touching on articulation, whereas dotted rhythm is referring to the duration of the note. The articulation is, in very, very broad terms, short or long. But when it comes to orchestration and strings and flutes and the orchestra, the articulation is really about how does each and every individual instrument sound, and how can you make them sound a little bit different. In this aspect, you play that quaver. So the quaver is already short, but the fact that it's a quaver with a staccato dot on it, to me that says super short, maybe the equivalent of a 16th note. You just tap it really. And then we've got the arpeggio, which is the horizontal wavy line there. And the general assumption with the arpeggio is that you roll up. But if the arpeggio has a downward arrow, you'd roll down. In this case, you're actually rolling up from your left hand. So the left hand is doing the B flat major. And then we've got a few ledger notes in the right hand, which is just a B flat, a D, and a B flat up the octave. You get better at reading octave shapes. Usually, with a bit of practice, you'll be able to tell that that's an octave. I'm sort of using, I'll sort of look at that and see the B flat octave, but I'm also using my, context cues in the sense that I know it's a fairly simple song. It wouldn't be doing anything sort of dissonant or weird. That's my assumption. I also know the piece. But so when I look at a shape like that, I'm going to assume that it's a B flat octave when I'm sight reading, rather than stop to sort of count the lines.
For the arpeggio,
yeah.
Where would the arrow be situated on the line, or is it a separate arrow?
I'll show you. Usually the arrow is only shown when it's pointing down. Otherwise, it's always up, and I'll show you what that looks like. Usually, it's sort of just an arrow. Oh, it's still coming up. That's pretty messy, but it's right at the bottom.
I can see, thanks.
Sometimes it's at the top. So sometimes people will go at the top, but it's very uncommon for people to put the up one because the assumption is that you move up. So I'd roll this chord up. But because you got to think in the tempo, okay? So the tempo is dum, dum, bum, 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 bum. And the arpeggio traditionally precedes the beat. It doesn't occur on the beat. It precedes it just a little bit. So one, liang. So you want to actually hit the accent on beat 2 because that's where that beat is occurring. One, liang. You don't want to go one, do 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 gam. That's interesting. But you want to go one. So it's just a little roll, but you got to keep it in tempo, rather than one. Does that make sense, guys?
Yep.
So the idea is to hit the top note on the beat. Bum. And then we come in with the accompaniment. As we can see in the piano conductor, there's a bell tree and a cymbal. So the bell tree is a vertical sort of a row of discs, metal discs, and usually they're struck from the top down. It makes kind of like a sound. Daniele does percussion impersonations. And then a cymbal as well, which would just be like a ting, ting sort of thing. That's really hard to impersonate. It needs sort of metal on metal. So you get a tongue. And together you're sort of painting this something. I'm going to spit or something. That's the closest I'm going to come to a human impersonation of a bell tree. You just got to be there, experience it in real life. If you see any concerts, bell tree solos for an hour, go for it. Really experience the bell tree. Cool, good one, Daniele. Then we got the bass coming in, and by this point, the song has started. So the accompaniment is a little thicker, it's a little louder, it's a little bit more present. We're not traditionally, when we have underscoring, we'll have dialogue. But at the point that the song starts, it then becomes a song. The melody then becomes part of the music. Whereas if underscoring is too loud, the dialogue will start to die and fade. So for the actor, there has to be a really interesting and sensitive approach to how they're talking when there's underscoring occurring. There has to be some change, some shifting gear so they can remain in the foreground and in the present. Yet at the same time, it's not the same energy that moves them into song. But in some way, they're bridging themselves into song. That's to say, if the underscoring leads into song. Sometimes there's just underscoring and then the underscoring dies out and there's no song. But if the text is under-energized, I mean, the text should always have some form of energy behind it and intention and all that sort of rest of stuff. But if the text is, for example, those that are more used to acting on TV, as soon as they go on stage with underscoring, that generally the sound gets kind of swallowed and very hard to hear. So I have to encourage them either to talk a little bit higher or just with a lot more resonance. But yeah, we won't go too much into that. Cool. That brings us to the end, actually. So does anyone have any questions? Is there anything that you'd like me to continue doing in some of our next sessions?
I'm interested in in terms of underscoring and stuff like that. Just what evokes, what sort of music evokes what emotions.
No.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, it's that's my opinion, right? But then there's also I guess, social, from a societal perspective, how we link emotion to music and what we expect to hear. So there is definitely that.
Yeah.
So maybe have a
Yes.
Oh yeah, go.
How you were breaking down last Monday with when you were saying a ninth or this or that, how it's okay, that's generally a horror vibe, or that's generally speaking different keys that
Cool.
or rhythms and things like that go to different music, I guess.
Awesome. Who here is interested in composition?
Sometimes, I guess.
It's a broad question.
I guess
but
it's useful if you're creating, not even composition, but useful if you're creating new work or things like that.
Yes.
Just to have an idea about forming and making things.
Yes.
So it's useful irrespective,
from
I think.
the
if you're
direction,
interested in
from
composition or not.
writing, as the actor becomes more knowledgeable about the music, that can inform them as well. So as to not to play to the tropes of the music. A lot of the time I find that the actor indulges in the underscoring and plays up the underscoring. And
that's the subtext.
I know, exactly. And
it's
exactly.
That's the duck's legs going underneath
Exactly.
and you're doing what's on top.
Exactly. And I have to, and you know that so well, which is great. And I always have to point it out to them. And usually it's because it's their innate musicality that's kind of going, oh, I hear whatever, chaos, confusion, sadness. and you play up that emotion too much, you fade into the background. That's a big question. We can talk more about that in the future. But I always have to encourage them to be aware. I think it's good to be aware, yeah. But in order to be aware, we have to be critical listeners. To be critical listeners, we have to analyze music, listen to music, go, how does it make me feel? Why is it making me feel that way? Which is a question I ask myself daily. What is this song? Why does it make me feel this way? And we can kind of break it down, this rhythm, that chord progression, this, that interval, that, orchestration, dynamics. So I'd love to talk about that. I geek out about that stuff. I think it's great.
I just think I've been listening to a heap of movie soundtracks recently and stuff like that. And that's just how I've watched the movies and then sort of listen to the music and be all right, they're doing that there to make you feel.
And that's it. When I'm watching a film,
or pride.
I'm analyzing the music so deeply. I try to just enjoy it, but then I'm oh, okay, I see what's going on here. Oh, I see what we're indicating here. Oh, major chord there. Oh, okay, yeah, minor here. Okay, oh, no, something's not quite right there. Scary thing about to happen now. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm sure you guys do it when it comes to
I'm not watching a movie with you anytime soon.
Oh, God. I don't talk about it, though. I keep it to myself, It's very personal, very personal. Though if someone encouraged me, I'd probably yap on the whole time. Just enjoy the film. Also, a good experiment would be to just think about some emotions or scenes, or you guys as the actualizers of worlds, right? Or at least the instruments of actualizing a world, whatever. Think of stories, characters, moods, whatever, and bring them into the sessions, and I'll think of ways to react to them musically, because that's something that is inherently natural to me. I will be given an emotion, a color, a world. It's just how I operate, and I will react to it musically. And then the beauty of music or any form of performance or improvisation is that you can analyze during, if you're quite masterful, right? The analyzing during improvisation is very difficult. And as you know, you can get in the way. But I've managed to cultivate that skill because I'm super interested in I'm just interested in retaining what I do, whereas I used to find that I just forgot what I did all the time. But anyway, we can also analyze it post. So I'd sort of do the thing and you'd be like, hey, Daniele, why did you go there? Why did you do that? What was that sound here? Of course, on a very small scale, it could be like, what does this line make you feel? What does this word make you feel? Why does it make you feel that way? How would you play sadness, or how would you play confusion? So we work at it at a different angle. We think about the product first, or the output first, and then we reverse engineer it. Know what I'm saying? So many different ways. But maybe like our Monday session might sort of evolve into that. Whether you use it or not, I guess, I don't know. That's music theory for you. You never know what you're going to use or not use, but music makes me happy, so I think it's just nice to know things. Know what I'm saying? Cool, guys. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm going to run away. And
thank you.